So with my character selected and I want to edit the weights, I bring up the weight editor. If I were to concentrate on a particular area, say on this foot, I would just tag some points. That's going to work on this section here. In fact, I was going to make sure I have the right one selected. There we go. You notice the color, it shows they're highlighted inside the weight editor. Without the weight editor, it's going to continue as it would normally and just show me the tagged vertices. As before, if I jump to something with a piece of animation on it, or even have some controller here, it's a good way for me to start to see the weight distribution. You notice that this is also moving as I rotate this. So what I'd like to do is to initially remove that from my weighting. I'm going to switch back to wireframe here, but I could also switch to one of these and turn off all of the components. So if I were to uncheck all but only switch to something like the chains and curves, I can see my deformers, and I can also switch back to say something like modeling mode. So there I can see my character moving, and I can easily select these deformers. Notice how it's moving here. So with this selected, I can tag the vertices I wish. I tag the other points of the leg. I want to remove them or reassign them. It's much easier for me to now select it over here. So envelope, reassign locally, and I can also see which side I'm working with, because there's a purple here. So I'm going to select these objects. So I'm selecting more than one, and now it's going to be locally reassigned to those. But why haven't they jumped to here? Well, the reason is the way I'm looking at it is in the result of the modeling, and that's how I applied the localization. Therefore no deformer took effect, because I need to be in animation mode, because my envelope is driving my object for animation. So if I were to reassign locally in animation mode and now select it, it'll jump to what I want. I could of course have gone back to my symmetry map and created an envelope symmetry mapping template. This is very important if you want to minimize the amount of work you're going to do by just working on weighting one side. I'm just going to take the defaults in this case. What that's going to do is it's different from a normal symmetry map, because it's defining the envelope operators. And here we can see that the left shoulder is going to mirror to the right shoulder. Underneath the object, if I go to an explorer, is the symmetry mapping template. If I select my object here, just update it. Underneath the cluster, there we go, symmetry map. There's my envelope weights. So tagging these, now when I go envelope, mirror weights, there we go, it's automatically got the template that I need. And that's, again, even if you don't have a symmetrical character, you can still work out what you want to assign to what. But for the local reassigning, while it's animating, it's probably the art of weighting. Control E, open up my weight editor. It's going to lock this as well, and if I were to start to rotate one of these things here, you can see, well, switch into shaded mode, and I need to start re-weighting some of this. so it's not quite right here. Certainly these tagged points need to be sorted out, so these ones here. And you can see that there's a considerable number of deformers which are affecting these points. If I just click on highlight, you can see those points. A quick way to isolate the bones that you wish is to look at the numbers. So left ulnar has a large number, so that's probably one of these bones, together with like left humerus here. So if I were to select these two columns, I'm holding down Control, I can use the slider to rid myself of all of these. So here I drag the slider to 100%. You notice how it's redistributing these as I go along because it's being normalized. It doesn't matter for now. There we go. With normalize off, I can now select these two columns again, and now when I play, there we go, you can see the distribution. That's because I started with a very low number. And also notice what's happening as I drag the slider here. If I put normalize on, notice how it must make 100%, and therefore somewhere around 50-50, if I were to do this, you can see these points moving. So there is a certain interactivity which you should have from animation driving your character, like so. I can also use the column to say here I'm in absolute mode, and say inside this dialog box make it 50, and therefore the others become 50. I can also use additive mode as well. If I add 10, you notice it added 10 and then normalize this down to 40. At any stage, if I were to select a single cell, you notice with highlight I can see that which I'm working on. If I were to now start smoothing, why is it all blue? Well, I applied a symmetry map, and that was not a normal symmetry map which is found in properties symmetry map. It's an envelope symmetry map. It's very important because it'll create the mapping template. Underneath my object clusters, I have got the symmetry mapping template with a cluster, the same as I have with the envelopes. If I now click on the envelopes, that is what I want to smooth. So if ever you see it turn blue, then you know you've got your symmetry map selected. So if I were to start to either add, or in this case smooth, you'll notice the numbers change accordingly because they're now being reassigned and smoothed and averaged to other deformers. I can always remove the points from the envelope by saying assign to no deformer. I can remove the entire envelope or remove individual deformers which I no longer require. I can also select all the deformers from the envelope. In object mode, select deformers from envelope. And bounding volumes are boxes and spheres which I can use to have inclusive and exclusive weights, an old style way of weighting.